When I say Colombia and Mexico, what is the first thing that comes to your mind? Both of these countries have outstanding geography, great food, vibrant and varied cultures, fascinating history. I could go on. Unfortunately, we could say that both of these countries have a little bit of a problem image overseas. All too often, I hear people asking about whether Mexico is safe or if it's safe to travel to Colombia. For many foreigners, particularly outside of Latin America, the only time when they hear about these countries is as the setting of an action movie or the scene of some grisly crime on the news. Of course, you're going to think that these countries are awful places, horrible places, if all you can hear is that these places are violent, awful, and scary. Now, before we go any further, I want to be clear. These countries are two countries that are very dear to me. Two countries where I've spent the happiest moments of my life. I'm Mexican, and yet I'm still blown away when I travel around my own country. It's so diverse that I'm still discovering new food and traditions. I'm currently spending a few months in Colombia. I lived here before as a student. I met my husband here too. As another Spanish-speaking country, some things seem familiar to me. But there are some other things that are completely different that are still fascinating and enchanting me. I can promise you that this won't be my last time here in Colombia. If you've been able to visit Colombia or Mexico and you've been able to experience them by yourself, I'm sure the first thing that you will think about these countries is going to be about colors, beautiful scenery, amazing food, and very, very, very friendly people. Colombia and Mexico both offer so many amazing things, which it seems that many people outside the region never even hear about. I'm not sure why only the negative aspects of these regions, of these countries, are only broadcast around the world. Having said that, let's be realistic. Bad things do happen here too. What is shown on the media is not representative of the countries as a whole, but it's not a lie either. Unfortunately, these are two countries which suffer high inequality, corruption, and crime. While many visitors may never be exposed to these negatives, it's undeniable that these countries are also home to people who do have to suffer unimaginable hardships and injustices. If you watch my channel, you'll know that I don't like to focus on the negatives. I don't hide anything. And what I show you is very representative of what I see and experience. But I'm not blind to the fact that bad things happen here too. And not everyone is as lucky as me. I encourage you to check out my other videos to find out more about these countries, the nice things about these countries that perhaps they don't get mentioned enough. Today, it's time to talk about the negatives though. But before going any further, let me give you a quick announcement. You know that this is my job, and the way I make money is by making YouTube videos, but by getting sponsors too. And the sponsor for this video is me. I'm a Spanish teacher too, and my goal is to help people speak the real Mexican Spanish we talk. I've been teaching online for over 3 years now, and I've created courses, Spanish conversational courses for you to help you thrive in Spanish. In my courses, you'll find a vocabulary list, phrases in Spanish, real phrases that we talk, conversations, videos. With that material, you'll have the essential tools to start speaking Spanish. But not only that, the amazing part of this course is that you'll also have live classes to put into practice what you've been studying. And in this way, you'll see if my courses really work. I also have conversational courses for people who already speak Spanish. I'm gonna leave my website here and below, thriveinspanish.com. And remember, don't just survive in Spanish, thrive in Spanish. So the question that I'm going to try to answer here is whether Colombia is safer than Mexico. And I'm going to split this into two parts. First, I'm going to take a look at the statistics of both countries to try to make a comparison between the two countries. Then, I'm going to give you my perspective, my opinion, as someone who has spent a considerable time traveling around Mexico and Colombia, to give you my opinions on the matter. So, let's dive in. Now, one problem when it comes to crime statistics is that many crimes will inevitably go unreported, particularly if people don't have much confidence in the abilities of the police to help them. For example, if I was in Mexico and somebody stole my phone, it's very unlikely that I would go to the police. If my phone was unsure, maybe I would need a crime report number to make a claim. But other than that, I don't have much faith that the police would do something to help me recover my phone. Imagine the stress of having your phone stolen. The last thing that I would like to do, that I would want to do, is going to the police office, to the police station to report my phone and spend a large time there knowing that the police might not do anything. For this reason, it's a little bit difficult to get data from these petty crimes. I say petty, but they still have the potential to cause significant financial and psychological distress, which I don't want to minimize. Some statistics which are more reliable are those of the most grisly crimes. If a crime results in a death, it's far more likely to be reported. The reason for this is that a death implies a lot of paperwork. In these cases, it's necessary to report the crime in order to generate a death certificate, to receive the deceased pension or insurance, or a host of the other bureaucratic processes, which surely only make the whole process more painful for the bereaved. So let's start by comparing the statistics from both countries per homicides to see how they compare. As I was researching for this video, I found a depressing report on the Mexican government website which shows the number of murders per day per state. Obviously, one day's data doesn't tell us much, but we're going to be looking at some shockingly large numbers that it can be difficult to comprehend what this means. At the time of filming this video, I can see that in my country, 2,331 people were murdered in my country. That's an awful figure that surely it represents an unimaginable suffer for a lot of people. On the equivalent website in Colombia, there's also information about murders in Colombia, and it's very interesting because in July a total of 1,147 people were murdered in July, an average of 37 people in Colombia, and in Mexico an average of 75 people. It's important to mention that the population of Mexico is about 2.5 times the size of Colombia, so these figures should be considered proportionally. To get an idea of how things look proportionally, I've checked the World Bank statistics, which allows me to compare the number of murders per 1,100 people per year over the last few decades. You can see here that the simple answer is clear. Mexico has more murders per capita than Colombia. I've included the data for the United States as well for reference because I know that this is where the majority of my viewers live. Sadly, both Colombia and Mexico are considerably higher than the US in terms of murders. What I think is really fascinating in this graph is the very different trends that both countries show in terms for violence. For most of the last few decades, Colombia was far more violent with shocking rates of deaths each year. This was a period during which power was held by paramilitary groups who controlled large swathes of the country and directly fought against the government. In recent years, a controversial treaty was signed with Las FARC, the largest paramilitary group in the country, in Colombia. Despite this, it's easy to find news stories of crimes committed by Las FARC. While it seems that the issue is far from solved, it seems that Colombia is far more peaceful than it was in living memory. On the other hand, it's clear that Mexico has gone from being a relatively peaceful country to overtaking Colombia in terms of deaths over the last few years. This has coincided with organized criminal groups taking over large portions of the international drug trade. As we can see on this map, control of the country is split between several different groups. Often, violence occurs when one group tries to expand into another territory that belongs to another criminal group. We can see here that over the past decades, groups have often splintered apart into smaller organizations, which in turn fight to establish themselves. At the same time, we can see here that there are parts of the country which are not controlled by these groups. We can see that certain parts of both countries have extremely high rates of violence, while others are relatively peaceful. So we can see that Colombia was far more bloody than Mexico for a long time. There is still high levels of murders, but thankfully the trend seems positive. On the other hand, murders in Mexico are becoming even more common, and there doesn't seem to be any reason to be optimistic about a change in my country. This has been a very brief overview of the situation. Please add your comments below in the comment section, and if you have any recommendations where to get information for people to investigate, please leave it below. Also, there's a lot of information that I'm leaving out because I know that there are a lot more qualified people who can explain this situation much better. I would like to share my personal experience as well as an individual who has traveled in these countries. The statistics about violence in Mexico are extremely sad. It's depressingly common to hear killings and robberies. When we hear about women going missing, it's unlikely to have a happy ending. It's obvious that there's an untold number of tragedies being played out on a daily basis in Mexico. I know that I'm in a very fortunate position. I'm able to live in a safe city in Mexico. I'm able to use safe means of transportation. My work doesn't require me to put myself in danger. I know that my experience is very different to that of a lot of people in my country. However, despite the awful events that play out all too often, it's also not rare to live a perfectly content in a peaceful existence in Mexico. I probably wouldn't live in Mexico if I didn't feel safe. And let me be clear, fortunately, I have a job where I can work from any part of the world. So it's in Mexico where I want to be. It's not nice to always feel on edge and think that you need to watch your possessions. As a woman, it's horrible to think that you can't go out alone because who knows what might happen. However, I feel very comfortable in Mexico. I feel very safe, and I don't have to worry if I go out alone at night. I walk around Querétaro with my camera out, and that's never felt like a bad idea. Some of you have seen me on the streets of Querétaro, so you won't let me lie. Querétaro has a very well-deserved reputation for being one of the safest cities in Mexico. That being said, there's a city 40 minutes away called Celaya, which is listed as one of the most dangerous cities in all over the world. I've traveled to many parts all over Mexico, and I've never felt unsafe apart from being pickpocket in Mexico City a few years ago. Guanajuato City feels peaceful and calm, despite the state of Guanajuato being the site of some terrible news. The state of Guerrero is listed as one of the most dangerous in the country, but my stay in Taxco was very pleasant. I haven't visited anywhere where I felt uncomfortable, even though these places may have been alarmingly close to some places where I certainly would have felt uncomfortable. All this is to say that I live in a bubble. Across Mexico, there are nice, peaceful, and beautiful places where you can travel safe and you won't feel any issue. I'm very sure that there are a lot of foreigners who've traveled across Mexico and they felt the same way. They travel around safe and nice areas without being scared of any violence or crime. And let me tell you that I'm very, very aware that there are a lot of Mexican people who are outside of this bubble and that they wouldn't say the same as I'm saying right now. As you saw from the statistics, Mexico is more dangerous than Colombia. It's weird to think that I was genuinely apprehensive of spending a couple of months in Colombia though. When I lived here in Colombia 10 years ago, I didn't worry about my safety. Maybe I was too irresponsible. I didn't even think about that. Actually, I had a great time in Colombia. However, I've seen a lot of stories on social media, videos on YouTube of people saying that Colombia is unsafe. And many Colombian people commented as well that I would spend a wonderful time, but that I should be careful. My fellow YouTuber and good friend Tah came to Colombia immediately after Mexico. She was very excited about Colombia, but unfortunately, she was robbed at knifepoint in Medellin. Of course, it was a very scary experience, and she left Colombia almost immediately. I heard many reports similar to Tah's experience, so of course I was a little bit worried. When I arrived to Bogota, I was excited, but I was also very on edge after hearing a lot of warnings. I didn't feel unsafe, but I was also very reluctant to take out my camera. And I was also very aware of my surroundings. When I arrived to Taganga on the coast, I feel this feeling a little bit more strongly. I felt that people were paying too much attention to me, more than normal. And of course, there are a lot of vendors on the streets calling you to take a tour or calling you into shops. That's normal. We were at the beach, and that's normal in Mexico too. But men paid more attention to me than I was comfortable with. My husband said that he was offered cocaine multiple times whenever he left the apartment alone. In this environment, and after hearing a lot of negative stories, I was certainly on edge. Actually, I said in my first video of this trip in Colombia that I didn't want to take out my camera with me. I also noticed that there were far more homeless people around that I'm used to seeing in Mexico. People have explained that due to terrible situation in Venezuela, around 2 million Venezuelans have come to Colombia in recent years, and many are unfortunately living in awful conditions. Being asked for change so often and very insistently, was another aspect that made me feel a little bit more aware. Having said all of this, I haven't had a single problem in the country. Actually, the people that I've met here have been very, very helpful and friendly. I haven't been in danger, nobody has robbed me, and I can imagine how life must be for someone who left their country and are begging on the streets of another country because they don't have any other option. I should be more sympathetic. Medellin, despite all the stories that I've heard, felt more comfortable. Perhaps because it's a bigger city and I didn't feel people were paying attention to me. It feels very internationalized. Oh my god. I felt that I was able to blend in more. All of this time that I was in these touristy areas, I felt that I needed to be watching my surroundings. Perhaps I was just overreacting. When I arrived in Manizales, I felt like a breath of fresh air. As this is not a touristy city, and I never felt that I was drawing any unnecessary attention. Nobody calls me in the streets to get my attention, or nobody is trying harder to sell me things. People who want to talk to me, though, are super friendly and are always trying to help. It's incredible the amount of people that I've met in this month here in Manizales. I already have friends. I went with friends to the mountains. I just went to a shop the other day and I even met the whole family. So of course I felt very welcomed here in Manizales. I haven't hesitated to walk home at night or bring my camera out because it feels really safe here. The reason I wanted to share this is that it may seem weird to compare big countries with such different contrasts if we want to get an idea of how safe is travel to Colombia or Mexico. Something that for sure I can say is that I've been traveling around El Eje Cafetero or the coffee region and in Manizales, the city where I'm right now. The last thing that I've thought about is about safety. But compared to the touristy areas, I can say that from my experience, I didn't feel the same way. I told you that I've been feeling very safe here in El Eje Cafetero or the coffee region. And I would love to tell you more about this city. I've been in love with this city. There's so much to see, to visit, and that's something that I would love to share in my next video. In one of my next videos, because I have a lot of videos that I have to edit. You can also check out my videos about Mexico if you're interested in watching them. Thank you for watching this video and see you in the next video. Adios!